Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to a conversation about peace with my very special friend, Marian Head. She is a world-class facilitator. She serves some of the most transformational global events in our history, including the historic global forums of spiritual and parliamentary leaders on human survival. And she is also an award-winning author of The Revolutionary Agreements, A Personal Path to Peace on Earth. And she is the founder of the Agreements Institute. And I am really so thrilled and honored to have you here with me today, Marian.
Thank you, MarBeth. It's such a joy to do this with you and to be of service to all those who are on this same path.
Yes, and we are on a path to peace. I love everything that you're doing. I remember when you were telling me, I think it was early on and after we met, about the revolutionary agreements and your book, and now look at everything you're doing now. You're certifying practitioners, and very exciting stuff.
Yes, I think what's even more exciting is look what others are doing now with the agreements, with the meditations that you are putting out there. You know, it's the ripple effect is so delicious. You know, that's my very favorite thing, is sharing what works so that others can do it and share what works. Yeah.
And what I love, well, let's talk about the revolutionary agreements, because they're so simple and yet so profound. And when they're practiced, they can't do anything but bring you into greater peace.
Yes. Well, that's the purpose, and that's why the subtitle for the second edition actually is A Personal Path to Peace on Earth. And I just want to share more, Beth. I don't know if you know this, but the first edition, which was written in 2005, the subtitle was so different vibrationally. It was 12 ways to transform stress and struggle into freedom and joy. But you know, I was still working with stress and struggle. We write and we teach what we're learning, right?
Of course.
So these agreements were, let's see, their origin was way back in 1985. My husband was then president of something called the Boulder Win-Win Business Forum, and that was Boulder as in Boulder, Colorado. And people gathered every week, mostly business owners, who wanted to do their business in a new way. He invited a small group of them over to our home, maybe a dozen, one day to say, well, how can we really live our values in everything we do, and especially at work where we spend so much of our time. And in those days, we went to work. So, you know, we had clients that came, and vendors, suppliers, and employees. So how could we live our highest values in the days when a lot of people were asked to leave their values at home when they went to work? Sure. So at that very first gathering, we began to develop a set of agreements. They're agreements with ourselves. That's the first thing to say about these agreements. They're agreements with ourselves that, you know, guide us to be the very best we can be. And the result of applying them, as you say, is greater inner peace, partly because one of the big results is better relationships, great relationships, enriched relationships. So that group that met once decided to meet again the next month. And we read the agreements again at the beginning of that meeting, and we talked about how they were influencing our lives. And then we decided to meet again the next month and the next month. And we met for 20 years for a full day. And the agreements, as we evolved, the agreements evolved. And the revolutionary agreements are my version of the essence of those agreements. And yes, they look simple, and they can be simple, but they have a lot of depth to them once we start applying them.
Yes, they do. Hold on to that. So Marian, why don't you tell us what the agreements are?
Sure. Well, I'd love to. Well, first of all, when they became revolutionary agreements, they self-organized into 3 of what I call pillars of a good life: truth, acceptance, and gratitude. TAG as in tag, you're it.
Truth, acceptance, and gratitude. I love it.
Yeah, and truth is about being the truth of who you are, being your authentic self. Acceptance is accepting others for who they are in this moment. And gratitude, well, gratitude is feeling and expressing our deep appreciation for every precious moment of this life that we've been given. So the agreements, there are 12 of them. They fall 4 of them into each of those areas of truth, acceptance, and gratitude. So shall I tell you which are the ones in truth?
Yes, tell us. Do tell us.
Well, the very first one, and remember these are agreements with ourselves. So the very first one is, I agree to live my mission. And what that means is, well, most of us, many of us have done mission statements and, what is our purpose? What is our life purpose? And oftentimes we head in the direction of getting there someday. This agreement means to live your mission. That means find the essence of what it is that's calling you and make sure you integrate it into your daily life. So it's very different from achieving a mission or a goal, which is fine.
Yeah, so it's not out there,
right.
But you are it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and I used to see this in one of the industries that I was in, which was a very lucrative business, let's say. And people had money on their minds a lot. And some would say, well, I'm doing this so that I can have more time with my family, just have more freedom and more time with my family. But I would watch them working round the clock, never seeing their families, and certainly not giving themselves any freedom to be in nature or just even almost to be in love. So, so it just means, even if it's 5 minutes a day that you set aside to sit down with your children before they go to bed and ask, what are you grateful for today? And let me tell you what I'm grateful for. The quality is the key. So once we know what the essence is of that calling, that mission, that purpose, what drives us, then we can incorporate it. That's, I agree to live my mission.
So so that can actually take a while until, of inner delving.
Yes.
To really access what is, I find so many people are asking, what is my purpose? What is my mission? What am I supposed to be doing? And it's sometimes it can be really challenging to get a handle on that.
Yes, and we have in the programs that my certified coaches teach, we have a couple of processes we take people through. Nice. And it's done through Zoom like this, so it's easy to reach people all over. We take them through processes of peeling the layers of the onion, so to speak, till we get to the core. Yeah. Well,
that's really, really nice. And I know that, you're talking about people who worked so hard. You built a multi-million-dollar business. You had a global business.
Yes, I did. And I drove it for a while too. until I said, wait a minute.
What's wrong with this picture?
It's important to practice these agreements if I'm going to be talking about them. So I did, and I do. And the second agreement in truth is I agree to speak my truth with compassion. And all that means, MarBeth, is to be honest. And when I'm being honest, to have the well-being of the other person and myself both in mind, heart. So that's all that means. But it's a practice.
So often there are people who will speak their truth in a mean way.
Yes.
So it's actually coming from a place of cruelty rather than from a place of love. And saying, oh, yes, but I'm doing this to help you. Giving you constructive criticism, but it really isn't.
Well, that comes from a place that a number of my students have found during their journey, which is called, I'm right. I'm right, and you need to know it. You need to know how to get right. It comes from a fixing place. And, it's one of the things that we'll get to this. I agree to, I'll jump there right now. In the acceptance area, I agree to listen with my heart means listening with your whole being, and what it does not mean is listening to judge, to
Yes.
fix.
Judgment is just, I think, the antithesis of finding peace, because when we judge other people, we're actually judging ourselves.
Well, because we are one. If for no other reason. So
Right.
that one, I agree to listen with my heart, was key in the transformation of my relationship with my mother, because I was always trying to help her. I was trying to tell her what she could do to make it better. But really, all she wanted, MarBeth, all she ever wanted was to be heard.
Of
For
course.
somebody to listen to her. And I have a friend who's a PhD in listening. That was her focus. And yes, to be heard is one of the healthiest things we can do for somebody else. One of the most healing things we can do.
Absolutely, because when you can actually hear what somebody's saying, you're seeing them, you're hearing what they're saying, you're allowing them to hear what they're saying and shift as it's right for them, without your telling them, I think you need to do it this way or that way.
Right. Yes, that's right. And so the third agreement in truth is I agree to look within when I react. Ooh, this is a big one. And this one is basically about how fortunate we are, if I switch my thinking, how fortunate we are to have each other as mirrors. So when something triggers me, for me, it's never about the other person, even though in the moment it feels like it is. It's always about something that's unresolved within me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and once I even ask myself that question, like, when did I ever behave like that? Right away, our relationship remains intact while I go exploring and discovering that, well, maybe I didn't like when I acted that way. It could have been years ago. But that keeps my relationship intact, and that's what's important here. Plus, looking within means I have a choice now of what to do about that unresolved issue within me. Excuse me.
Right, absolutely. And it could also be something, you're being triggered because of something that happened to you. So there's an opportunity to heal an ancient wound.
Yes, yes, of course. And I know that's one of the things that you are so good at holding space for. And I so appreciate that, MarBeth, about you. Okay, so the fourth one in the truth area is I agree to keep doing what works and change what doesn't. Because if we're going to live an authentic life, we can't keep doing what doesn't feel good.
Or what doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. And so one of the things that we teach and that anybody could really learn, we can Google anything these days, is to understand how to change the neural pathways in our brain. Because once there's a pathway that's been established, even if it doesn't result in something we like, it's a comfortable pathway. It's why we call it a rut. It's like a real rut in our brain.
Yes, exactly.
And the only way that I know of, and it works, to change what doesn't work is think, well, what would I rather be doing? And start building a neural pathway that's strong. Oh, I'd love to share a story about that if I could.
Oh, do.
Because it's so much fun. I might even have a little, yeah, I do. I have a little gadget I'll bring over in just a minute. So one of my business partners in the time of that multi-million-dollar global business said, isn't our work just so much fun and it's easy and rewarding? And I said, well, it's fun because I get to do it with you and our friends, and it's rewarding because we were literally saving people's lives and the money was pouring in, so it was very rewarding. But easy? I said, no, I don't think it's easy. And she said, really? I think it's easy. And I thought about that and I thought, we do the same thing. It's the same work. Why does she think it's easy and I think it's hard? Aha. I have always thought work is hard. It's how I grew up. Be a hard worker. Work is hard. Well, I decided it was time to get over it. So I started working with seeing things, anything, as easy. And the next morning I opened the sliding glass door and it went whoosh, and I went, that was easy.
Wait a second. Oh, do you have this? Is this your little gadget?
Oh, it is good, and you've got it because I have to walk over there to get it. Thank you. One of my readers, I wrote a blog about this because I was so excited that I cracked an egg in a pan, and there it was. That was easy. That was easy. That was all day long. And so one of my readers sent me that button. Go ahead and press that button for us, would you, MarBeth?
Absolutely.
That was easy.
So then I had somebody else saying that was easy every time I was saying that was easy. And I rewired my brain to see things, everything, as easy. Now,
I love that. It's beautiful.
Everything isn't easy, but now 90% of the things are easy.
I love that. And it makes such a difference, just that shift in perception makes it fun.
Yes. And we can do it with anything.
Anything. Absolutely.
Anything with that. And we'll talk about a little bit more as I go through the other agreements too. So in the area of acceptance, I already said the first one is I agree to listen with my heart, which is really with our whole being. And
Sure.
No judgment, no fixing. The next one is I agree to respect our differences. Now, this is a big one in the world, but it's also a big one in just our everyday, sort of mundane ways that wind up giving us stress or irritating us. And so it's really fun to, again, work with our thinking. And when we see something that irritates us, because we would never do that, like talking on a cell phone in a restaurant, for example, that we kind of learn to play a what if game. We do this during our programs, but I'll share it with you right now. And you feel irritated and you go, well, what if, and you think a positive thought, what if he was just called back for a part in a play he's been waiting to hear about? What if his first granddaughter was just born? What if? And so it changes our state when we go from that irritation and annoyance to that positive thought, because it's all what we think, right, MarBeth?
Oh, absolutely. I always ask, how can I see this a different way? How can I see this through the eyes of love?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that. Oh, that gave me the chills.
Oh, good.
I like that. It's beautiful. So then the third agreement in the area of acceptance is I agree to, let's see, what is it? Oh, yeah. Resolve conflict. Oh, I can go like this, and we can see it right here.
Wow, there it is. Yes.
Conflicts directly. Yes. Now, resolving conflicts directly just means when there's an issue up, we don't wait. Because
you do it now.
Yeah, do it. Well, do it as soon. Let's say do it as soon as you're not hot.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you need to take a few breaths.
Right, a few breaths, or a day, maybe, or whatever. Let it settle. And besides, if you take a day, you might find that if you look within, when you reacted, it wasn't about that person anyway. So there's really no conflict except what you've got going on inside. Right?
Always.
Yeah, but directly, it's so obvious to me looking back now that all of this stress and the struggle about conflicts comes before we sit down to resolve them. It comes in the days and the weeks, the months, sometimes the years people were estranged from family members. They start working with these agreements and they're seeing family members and friends they haven't seen in years, because it's not, the hard part isn't when you're together. Especially if you do what you do and say, well, how would love be here? Yeah. Or to apply what our friend Diane Collins teaches, which is what kind of experience would you like to have? Well, when I get together with this person, I would like to have a loving experience. And it creates that instead of, oh, I'm heading for a fight. Yeah. So the fourth agreement is I agree to honor our choices, and this is in the acceptance areas. And honoring our choices just means, it means that at the time we make a choice or decision, it's the best one we could make at that moment of choice or decision. And to get that so that we stop beating ourselves up over the outcome that we didn't expect, and say, oh, I made a mistake. No, you made a choice. It was the best one at that moment. And so does the other person make a choice that was the best one at that moment that they could. They didn't say, well, I think I'll make a choice that's going to be really bad for me.
Right?
So once we realize that, then we can be more at peace, with the outcomes, with what we don't have control over, let's say.
Right.
Yeah, so let's just take a breath for a minute with truth and acceptance.
Yes, and just really honor ourselves because we made choices and we can always choose something differently.
That's right. We can go back to the agreement to keep what works and change what doesn't.
There you go.
There you go. And then in the area of gratitude, the first one is I agree to give and receive thanks. And I don't know about you, MarBeth, but from the time I was little, my mother was always saying, what do you say to Mrs. Somebody or other? And it was, thank you, thank you, thank you. So,
but it doesn't come from the heart.
Well, that's true too. And we're trained at least to think about thank you.
Yes.
We're not so trained to receive appreciation.
That's very true also.
Yeah.
I know I certainly had a lot of difficulty receiving, great at giving, difficulty receiving. And I know a lot of women have that.
Yes. And a lot of activists and a lot of people who are out there serving, a lot of the people in the service industries, they're great. We are great at giving, but we don't have a lot of practice receiving. And receiving is both a beautiful thing for our own health. It's beautiful for the person who's giving, because when you give to somebody, MarBeth, you're such a giver. Don't you want them to receive it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we receive, it fulfills the cycle, it fulfills the giver. Mm-hmm. And also, here's what I've noticed that's really interesting. Those who can receive appreciation receive other things pretty well too. Other things they want in their life, like money and love. Because it's
those little unimportant things.
Right? I mean, it's an energy.
Yeah.
So receiving is an energy. So practice receiving appreciation. It's really fun.
It is. It's a big one.
Yeah. And then the next one is, I agree to see the best in myself and others.
Nice.
Oh, if this was it, if this was all we had, and truthfully, only one agreement is needed to practice. So I invite the audience, the listeners, to pick the one, we're not quite finished yet, but pick the one that you think would have the greatest positive impact on your life. And just begin to focus on that one. Well, this one was critical to my marriage. I agree to see the best in myself and others.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
It was critical in my relationship also with Harrison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for a while I was seeing only the negative.
Oh, you too?
It wasn't pretty.
No, it's not pretty. And I went for almost a year being so critical. It was I think it was my 24th wedding anniversary. I thought, boy, if something doesn't shift, we are not going to be celebrating our 25th. And we had a good 23 years. But then something happened. I just started getting so critical. I could blame it on, no, I'm not going to blame it on anything.
It's a great learning opportunity. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, one of my friends who was a relationship coach said, listen, he's a good guy. Just focus. Don't criticize him until you can say 10 positive things about him and tell him.
Wow. That's exciting. And you did it.
Shifted everything.
Yeah. And what I did was I got a little blank journal. And every morning I would sit in the bedroom. Glenn sleeps later than I do. And I would just look at him and ask, so what's good about him? What am I grateful for? What do I like about him? And I have to tell you, the first day, MarBeth, it wasn't easy because I was in that.
No, I know. It was hard.
Right? I was in that mood. But after the first day, it was kind of like it opened the door.
Yes.
The second day, it was easier. And then it got fun very fast. In fact, about, it was about 5 years after I want to tell you this one thing first. I wrote for 121 days, And then I gave Glenn, he did not know I was writing. He did not know I was thinking about this. I gave him that journal for our 25th wedding anniversary as a
Oh,
gift.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So about 5 years later, a friend of ours was sharing that he and his wife were having some difficulties. And Glenn said, go get the gratitude journal you wrote. I said, really? Kind of personal. And he said, well, let's just share what we did because it might help him, or what I did. So I said, well, where is it? He says, it's on my nightstand. It's always, we travel, as you know, we travel a lot. He said, it's always on my nightstand. It's like, it is?
Oh, it's so sweet.
That was nice. So I went and I got it and shared about it. And then Glenn said, I think you should publish that. I think it could help people. It's like, really? Publish this very personal, intimate journal? Well, I did. It's called Gratitude Journal for a Healthy Marriage.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and really it has to do with any relationship and even any situation that's challenging. Because what it takes, or what it took me, was every day one thing, just writing one thing that was good, that was great, that I loved about him, that I liked about him, that I was grateful for. And by day 5 in the book, when I wrote the book, I realized that I had fallen in love with Glenn again. This is the key, without ever asking him to do anything differently. I never asked him to do anything differently. I just changed my mind.
Yes, it's all about our perception. When we're focused on what's wrong, when we're focused on what's wrong with this person and all the things that are wrong with them, it's really hard to shift out of that. But when we do, it's miraculous, really.
Yes, and a personal path to peace on earth. You know, I love what you're doing, MarBeth, and it is bringing more peace, especially in an area of our world that needs it so badly. And it starts within, right? Yeah. I mean, we are generating that. So when we're seeing the best, we are so much lighter and more loving and more available than when we are judging.
Yeah. Well, actually, judging is, we judge ourselves, and it's really hard not to. We compare ourselves to other people. You know, is this person prettier, better dressed, more sophisticated, smarter, you know, whatever it is. And then we grade ourselves, you know, so are we as good as them, or are they better than me? And so we're constantly judging other people. And you know, it's just something that is part of human nature. And really, we need to just, when we recognize that we're judging, just say, you know, okay, I know we're the same inside. You know, we're the same. We're both breathing. We both have beating hearts, and we both are actually spirit, and we're one. You know, and that can really shift things.
Yes. Yes, and it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there's 2 more agreements. Shall I go on?
Well, tell us the last 2, and then we're going to need to wind it up.
Okay. The next one is I agree to see blessings in disguise.
Ooh.
And you know how we can look back and see things that were real tragedies that turned out to be a blessing in some way.
Yes.
It's important to do that so that we know that that is likely when we're right in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
And that brings us more inner peace also, to know there's a blessing in here somewhere, even though you might not know what it is, or ever know what it is.
Absolutely. I remember when I had a boyfriend who died, and he was actually named Harold Klein. And he died suddenly of a heart attack. And at the time, you know, I decided that I was going to move through my emotions. I was not going to sit and just succumb to grief, but I was going to move through it. And, you know, at the time, if you told me that there were going to be some amazing gifts in the experience, I would have been shocked, and I would have probably been angry. But there were amazing gifts in that experience. I grew so much. And from that, I realized, look what I have to do that can help so many other people.
Yeah.
But I realized it, and it took moving through. I had the tools. I was through the grief part with just a few months, but then I realized, look, the love is still here. There's love. And I feel good about the relationship and I have memories, but I don't have the grief and the pain and the guilt and the sadness or all those other heavy emotions. And that was just really so illuminating to go through that experience and recognize that no matter how heavy an experience is, it's an opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, when we're in the midst of it, it's not the time to say to somebody, you know, oh, you'll find the blessings in disguise.
No, you can't,
just
because
where you are with it. Feel the feelings. You know, this is one of the great things about being human, is we have such a wide range of feelings. Feel feelings, right? And then somewhere there might be, I know it'll be okay. And it's, for me, this agreement helps. And the last agreement is needed right now, which is I agree to lighten up. And that wraps it up.
Absolutely. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. These are awesome, Marian. And I know you have a poster which we'll share on the page where we'll be posting this conversation about peace, and we'll have all the links to access you, as well as the poster of the revolutionary agreements, because they are amazing.
And it's
as are you.
It's pretty easy to remember. Do you want me to speak it?
No, it's okay. It'll all be on the link, and people
very
can go to
good.
the page. It'll all be there.
Okay.
So I want to thank you so much for all of your wonderful wisdom that you've culled and shared with us. It's just really so beautiful. Thank you so much, Marian.
Well, thank you for letting me share these because they work. And sometimes when people say, well, what do you do? What comes up for me is I like to share what works for me because it might work for you. So
beautiful.
May this help you on your path to peace.
Yes, it's so beautiful. Yes. So that it comes from your heart. And it's something that's shared. So that's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, MarBeth. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for leading the meditation later today. I'm so excited to hear and experience your meditation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to dropping into that space with you and everybody. Mm-hmm.
Me too. Thank you so much for being part of the World Miracle Peace Experiment.
It's a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you, MarBeth.
And so much love.